Alia iacta ist, the die is cast. These are the words uttered by Caesar as he made a decision that would go on to end the Roman Republic. Suetonius claims he said this as he crossed the river Rubicon in Italy. This was the boundary in which it was forbidden for Roman generals to cross with their army. Caesar knew that by doing so, there was no turning back. The main issue at hand in the lead-up to the war was how Caesar, who had been in Gaul for almost 10 years before 49 BC, was to be reintegrated into the political fabric of Rome after accumulating immense power and wealth in Gaul. This was brought to a head by the breakup of the political alliance of the First Triumvirate, a deal between Pompey, Crassus, and Caesar. Crassus died in battle with Parthia in 53 BC, and Caesar's daughter Julia, wife of Pompey, also died in 54 BC. With nothing tying Caesar and Pompey together, they became direct rivals. This rivalry stemmed from the two being essentially leaders of two different factions. The Roman orator Cicero best defines these as the populace and optimates. In simplified terms, the optimates were the conservative elitist class who made up the Senate and other assemblies, while the populace were senators who acted as a populist. By this time, Caesar was beloved by the people of Rome, while conservative senators rallied behind Pompey. While Caesar was in Gaul, Pompey was able to become sole consul in 52 BC and agitate against Caesar to the Senate. Pompey demanded that Caesar surrender his army and provinces in order to be allowed to return to Rome. Caesar believed that if he returned to Rome, he would be prosecuted and stripped of his wealth and fame. Caesar's decision to return to Italy with his army has been debated, and even Roman historians have disagreed on it. Caesar himself defined his response as to protect with his life his dignitaries. Plutarch believed his response was driven by his ambition to be regarded as the greatest man of his time. Suetonius proposed the argument that Caesar was forced to respond how he did because otherwise he would have been unfairly trialed by his enemies. Whatever the reason, Caesar crossed the Rubicon. Caesar made sure to address his men. According to his own account, he spoke of injustices done to him by his political enemies, how Pompey had betrayed him. In response, Pompey issued an edict in which he recognized a state of civil war, ordered all the senators to follow him, and fled to Greece. Caesar pursued him and landed in Greece, and the two met in battle in 48 BC. This would be no easy battle. Pompey himself was an extremely successful general who had conquered much of the East and had enjoyed 3 triumphs for his achievements. Nevertheless, Caesar attacked Pompey at the Battle of Dyrrhachium. After attempting circumvallation of the Pompeian defenders, Caesar attempted to capture the vital Pompeian logistics hub of Dyrrhachium, but was unsuccessful after Pompey occupied it. After months of skirmishes, Pompey was able to break through Caesar's fortified lines and force Caesar into a strategic withdrawal for Thessaly. Pompey sought to engage Caesar in a decisive battle. After several days of cavalry skirmishes, Caesar was able to lure Pompey off of a hill and force battle on the plain of Pharsalus. Pompey had double the amount of men, but Caesar had veteran soldiers from Gaul. As Pompey's infantry fought, Labienus ordered the Pompeian cavalry on his left flank to attack Caesar's cavalry. As expected, they successfully pushed back Caesar's cavalry. Caesar then revealed his hidden fourth line of infantry and surprised Pompey's cavalry charge. Caesar's men were ordered to leap up and use their pila to thrust at Pompey's cavalry instead of throwing them. Pompey's cavalry panicked and suffered hundreds of casualties as Caesar's cavalry came about and charged after them. After failing to reform, the rest of Pompey's cavalry retreated to the hills, leaving the left wing of his legions exposed to the hidden troops as Caesar's cavalry wheeled around their flank. Caesar then ordered in his third line, containing his most battle-hardened veterans, to attack. This broke Pompey's left-wing troops, who fled the battlefield. Caesar had won his greatest victory, claiming to have only lost about 200 soldiers and 30 centurions, and assigning the optimate losses to be 60,000 men. Of course, these were exaggerations, but he had surely won a decisive victory. Pompey's council of war decided to flee to Egypt. Hearing of Pompey's flight, Caesar remained in hot pursuit, first landing in Asia and reaching Alexandria on the 2nd of October, 48 BC, where he learnt of Pompey's murder and then was embroiled in a dynastic dispute between Ptolemy XIII and Cleopatra. After defeating the last pockets of opposition, Caesar was appointed dictator perpetuo. Roman historian Livy then tells us of 3 incidents of tyrannical rule which led to his assassination. The first, when the Senate were restoring honors onto Caesar, etiquette called for Caesar to stand up to greet the senators, but he did not rise. Secondly, a crown was found placed on the statue of Caesar in Rome and people began calling him Rex, the Latin word for king. Thirdly, on the 15th of February, 44 BC, Mark Antony, who had been elected co-consul with Caesar, climbed onto the rostra and placed a crown on Caesar's head, saying, "The people give this to you through me." While a few members of the crowd applauded, most responded with silence. All of these were taken as signs that Caesar wished to be a king-like figure. Prior to the Roman Republic, Rome was ruled by 7 kings, with the final one being so tyrannical that he was overthrown. This led to the Romans being extremely hostile to monarchy. The conspiracy to assassinate Julius Caesar began with a meeting between Cassius Longinus and his brother-in-law Marcus Brutus in the evening of the 22nd of February, 44 BC, when after some discussion the two agreed that something had to be done to prevent Caesar from becoming king of the Romans. Caesar considered Brutus one of his closest and most loyal friends. On the Ides of March of 44 BC, conspirators and non-conspirators met at the Senate House of Pompey, located in the Theatre of Pompey, for the Senate meeting. According to Plutarch, as Caesar took his seat, Lucius Tillius Cimber presented him with a petition to recall his exiled brother. Both Plutarch and Suetonius say that Caesar waved him away, but Cimber grabbed Caesar's shoulders and pulled down Caesar's toga. Caesar then cried to Cimber, "Why? This is violence." Gaius Servilius Casca stabbed him in the side. Within moments, Caesar was attacked from all directions, with Cassius slashing Caesar's face, Bucilianus stabbing at the back and Decimus slicing his thigh. Caesar attempted to fight back, but tripped and fell. The men continued stabbing him as he lay defenseless on the lower steps of the portico. Caesar was stabbed 23 times. Upon seeing that Brutus was among the assassins, he famously said, "Et tu, Brute? And you, Brutus?" With Caesar now dead, his supporters and opponents would go on to fight another civil war. One side led by Cassius and Brutus, and the other by Mark Antony and Caesar's adopted son Octavian, who would go on to found the Roman Empire and be known as Augustus Caesar.